So why don't we just kind of start, and we have kind of done this to a point already today, but just by way of example, we'll just start kind of going down the line and making sure everybody is still good from where we left off. So let's go ahead and start with drums. Let's just start with kick. So at this point, the guys would be making individual changes if they needed to. And so we have 24 inputs on these live mix systems. And so because we have more than 24 inputs to our overall input list, we're having to make some choices. So for us, I have a kick in mic and a kick out at front of house. But for these purposes, the guys are only using one of the kick mics. So we have one of the kick mics. We have snare top. I have a snare bottom mic as well, but they don't have that in their ears. And then we have the rest of the drums. Toms, hi-hat, overheads are in a 2 mix. So 3 and 4 in their personal mixers is the rest of the drums. So let's move on to snare, if everybody's good with that. Take off the reverb for now. I said take off the reverb for now. Thank you. Great. Kick-hat snare. So at this point, people can make changes to their mixes if they need to and make adjustments. Okay, if everybody's good with drums, let's go ahead and add bass. Good. Let's stop for a second. So notice a couple of things. First of all, I'm the one who's kind of directing the process at this point. So Soundcheck, in my mind, is for the tech team to get what they need. And so it's for me to be able to dial in sounds, for the monitor engineer, if there is one, to be able to get their ears happening, or if there's a personal monitoring system, for them to focus on that. So how much more difficult is it to do this if during this bass and drums thing, we've got a guitar player off to the side who's just playing Eruption, right? So, not that there's anything wrong with that, Todd. So, I think it's important as a team, as we clarify the win, to be able to say to each other, okay, guys, because we're taking ourselves and each other and our congregation on a journey, and we want it to be as excellent as possible, when it's time for sound check, we already know that your stuff's working because you came in and you kind of tested, make sure your rig is good. So it's not the time to noodle, right? This is the time to focus on what's being asked of us as a band. So we're going to try to not get distracted by a lot of extraneous stuff. We're going to focus on bass and drums. We're going to add things as we go. And it just makes the whole thing much more efficient, effective, and enjoyable for everybody. Make sense? It's not that hard, but we forget. Especially if we've got amateur musicians who are coming in and this is their one outlet to play, they want to play a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the discipline that's required, it's a different thing. Now you notice Daniel, even as I'm talking, is sitting there playing, but he's just, because guitar players can't not do it. So it's fine to do that. It's just off. Exactly. There's a switch that gives the volume down option, right? I'm sorry, Daniel. Say again.
Oh, I just said that's your best friend.
Yeah, the volume pedal is a great thing. So let's pick up where we were. Since Daniel's so eager, let's add guitar. Oh, sorry. One other thing I would say, you can keep playing, but one other thing I would say is, you notice they're not playing a difficult worship song or anything from the set. They're just playing a groove, right? They're just getting comfortable. They're able to warm up by doing this. It's just a generic thing. They've said, okay, we're going to start in this key. We're just going to kind of play a groove. So we're not rehearsing what we're going to do. We're just practicing. We're getting comfortable. We're playing as a band. We're kind of listening. So it's not an exercise in, practicing your parts, right? Good. So let's add guitar. play some jazz worship for y'all.
C minor.
Okay, so in our setup we have piano, but then we also have pads and other keys that are on different inputs. So as we go, maybe Matt, you can add key 2 as well. Good. So this is a chance for me to make sure that I'm satisfied with the tones of everything, and a chance for them to get their balances right in their ears. But again, we're just creating this atmosphere of, okay, this is a pretty good feeling thing so that when we get to a song, things are already kind of in shape in terms of balances and tones. Great. Todd, can you add acoustic just to make sure we have it?
Yeah, like C minor, F.
Great.
Nice. You guys sound good. You sound like y'all played together before.
So a couple of things I would say about that. So first of all, well, I'll say a lot about that. Notice we haven't added any vocals yet. And for this exercise, that's okay. But how many have been in environments where everybody's called in for sound check, and so then we have this sort of headless chicken metaphor of the tech team scrambling around, and then we have this sort of disorganized, lack of structure sound check. Meanwhile, we have singers who've been called to be there at the same time, who've been now sitting around for 45 minutes doing nothing because we're not ready for them, right? So Christy and her team, instead of just standing around being on stage, frustrated, and why did I have to get up extra early if I'm not ready now anyway? What if they were in a different room, maybe rehearsing their parts, making sure they're warmed up, doing some exercises together, maybe talking as the singers of the worship team about what the win is for them today and where we're taking people and how we're going to manage what we say between songs or whatever that might be. But in other words, not wasting their time, but using it as a way to kind of facilitate some productivity for their side of the team as well. So that might mean a later call time, or it might mean, some offline space for them to do their own thing until we're ready for them. Does that make sense? Now, one thing that I'll say about that, though, is that throughout this process, even though the singers aren't singing yet, their mics are in my mix. How many of you who are engineers have spent a lot of time kind of getting the band dialed in, and then the singers come on stage, you push up the mics, and you're like, what happened to my mix? Has that ever happened to any of you guys? Yeah. It used to happen to me a lot. And so right now, their mics are on, and almost at the volume they'll be when they're singing, so that I can hear if there's stage volume issues from the cymbals into their mics, if there's bleed happening, if there's stuff going on. I'm hearing that right now through their mics. Now, if you have somebody other than whoever's at front of house directing sound check, I would say if they're on a mic, checking people, how are your ears, how's your mix, have them do that check on the worship leader's mic. If it's not the worship leader leading that process, use that mic so you can have it on, have it in the room, hear it, how it fits in the mix, so that when it comes time for them to start singing, you've already heard that mic. Might be a good tip. Great. So Now that we've done this groove thing, the other thing I would say about this part of the sound check process, did you notice how relaxed everybody was? They're just having fun playing music, right? So I'm able to sort of take away the tension that might be there from having to learn a new song or having to play a difficult part. They're just playing and having fun. So the feel and the vibe is just, it sounds good because they're playing great, because they're just playing.